Hi, this is Sunsara Taylor from Washington, D.C. in front of the Supreme Court of the United States during the week of Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation hearings, Trump's appointment to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court of the United States. I'm here to report for the RNL, the Revolution Nothing Less show, and to join with RefuseFascism.org in mobilizing in the streets and calling on everybody across the country to take to the streets, to join us in the streets, to stay in the streets, demanding Trump, Pence out now, to stop the fascist coup now unfolding in plain sight. This is not a normal confirmation process going on here this week. Donald Trump has openly stated that he wants to fill this Supreme Court seat in record time so that the court can rule in his favor should the elections be contested. And he is doing everything in his power to contest these elections already. He's mobilizing an army of ex-military and police to intimidate at the voter polls. He is declaring mail-in ballots fraudulent, and he is refusing almost daily to accept a peaceful transfer of power. For her part, Amy Coney Barrett, during these confirmation hearings, has also refused to endorse a peaceful transfer of power.
Do you believe that every president should make a commitment, unequivocally and resolutely, to the peaceful transfer of power?
Well, Senator, that seems to me to be pulling me in a little bit into this question of whether the president has said that he would not peacefully leave office. And so to the extent that this is a political controversy right now, as a judge, I want to stay out of it, and I don't want to express a view on...
She has refused to state the basic constitutional principle as law that Donald Trump, the president, cannot single-handedly postpone the election.
Does the Constitution give the President of the United States the authority to unilaterally delay a general election under any circumstances? Does federal law?
Well, Senator, if that question ever came before me, I would need to hear arguments from the litigants and read briefs and consult with my law clerks and talk to my colleagues and go through the opinion writing process.
And she has refused to state that violent and armed voter intimidation is illegal.
Last week, a contractor from outside of my state of Minnesota started recruiting poll watchers with special forces experience to protect polling locations in my state. This was clear voter intimidation. Similar efforts are going on around the country, solicited by President Trump's false claims of massive voter fraud. So as a result of his claims, people are trying to get poll watchers, special forces people, to go to the polls. Judge Barrett, under federal law, is it illegal to intimidate voters at the polls?
Senator Klobuchar, I can't characterize the facts in a hypothetical situation, and I can't apply the law to a hypothetical set of facts.
She is giving us every reason, just like Trump is giving us every reason to believe that this Supreme Court will be an instrument of this fascist coup that must be stopped, and that votes alone are unlikely to determine the outcome of this upcoming election. But that's not all that's at stake. All week here in D.C., the steps of this Supreme Court and this city as a whole has been crawling with Christian fascist foot soldiers, true believers, including many young women enthusiastic about the prospect of Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court, because they see, just as Trump and Pence and Pompeo and the whole fascist regime recognizes, that Amy Coney Barrett would tip the balance of the courts decisively in a fascist majority and a theocratic fascist majority. This will be a court that is hostile to the rights and the lives of women, ready to deprive women of their right to abortion and even birth control, and force women back into the conditions of forced motherhood and female enslavement. This will be a court hostile to the rights of LGBTQ people, stripping away recently won rights, slamming them back into the closets and worse. This is a court and a Christian fascist movement that is redefining religious freedom, not to mean the freedom of everybody to practice their own conscience in their own personal lives, and to live as they believe they should, but to mean the right of Christian fascist theocrats and bigots to impose their bigotry upon everybody else through the power of the state. We are in very dangerous times, but for their part, the Democratic Party is legitimizing and normalizing this process. Rather than opening impeachment hearings against a president who is openly declaring he wants the courts to help him steal the elections, they showed up for these confirmation hearings like good little boys and girls and legitimized an illegitimate process. Yes, they asked some tough questions, but they have conceded in advance that Amy Coney Barrett will be confirmed to the Supreme Court with all that means. Meanwhile, they tell their supporters to vote in even greater numbers, even as, once again, it is clear that Donald Trump cannot be counted on to respect the electoral outcome. Yes, we should vote in overwhelming numbers if there is an election, and we should deal Donald Trump a decisive electoral defeat. This matters tremendously, but it is not enough. It is time for us to come into the streets and join those with refusefascism.org who are already in the streets day after day protesting and demanding Trump Pence out now. We need to overwhelm this fascist coup. We need to be in the streets in nonviolent mass protest until we remove this regime from power. This has been done around the world. It needs to be done here now. We saw our power across the country in the streets, and the beautiful rising against police murder and terror, against institutionalized white supremacy. We saw how the power of the people in the streets changed things overnight, made what seemed impossible one day possible, and what everybody was talking about the next day. And we saw it right here in Washington, D.C., too, in the seat of power, the courage that people had up against this bloated bag of fascist feces in the White House, Donald Trump. We need all of that again and much more right now, because all of that and much more is at stake in this fascist coup, in this fascist takeover of the courts. We need to come back into the streets here in D.C., in the seat of power, and nationwide, because the road to a world where Black lives matter, a road to a world where immigrants are treated like human beings, not animals locked in cages with their children torn from their arms, a world where women have the right to decide their own lives, their own destinies, their own reproductive decisions, a world where LGBTQ people are treated and valued as full human beings and part of the family of humanity, a world where we take care of the environment and stop the acceleration towards environmental destruction for the whole world, and where we value the lives of people around the world and put an end to these unjust wars. All of that, any of that, requires the removal of this regime. We need to pour into the streets. We have the power. We have the power in our millions if we dare to do this. So everybody, we need to start. We have begun. We need to erect this pole. We need to call out to society. The streets are the place to be. Trump Pence out now is the demand we can all unite on and that humanity needs from us, and we can win.